Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Revive and Empowered Vibrant Living Women Summit. And now I am going to introduce and welcome to the stage Jennifer McFarland. Now, Jennifer is a writer, speaker, and positive change maker or a coach. And she is also a TFT practitioner, which is a tapping practitioner. She has developed a custom-made change system for women who have discovered that they have ADHD, and they usually discover it later in life. And this system helps them connect with the goals they actually want and their actions. So this is an amazing system, and I can't wait for her to share it with you. She says she's happiest when she can be around the water and spending time with family, and she has 3 grown kids. Her title is From Overwhelmed to Empowered: How Women with ADHD Can Thrive. You have the power to make a change, so let's learn how. Join me in welcoming Jennifer to the stage.
Hi, my name's Jen McFarland. I'm from Monarch Dawn. Thank you for joining me as I talk about the power that you can have to make a positive change for your life. A couple of years ago, I was looking to figure out how to transfer my work from in person to online, as so much of us were at the time. And during that time, I signed myself up for a business coaching program. And as I worked my way through this program, some of the stuff was wonderful and very easy for me to accomplish, and some of it was pretty difficult. And I didn't really understand why there was this difference. And I worked with the coach, and I really appreciated and liked all the things that I was learning, and the support was great. But still, there were some things I was really struggling with, and I couldn't seem to get a handle on it. It was just so much harder for me to do. It wasn't until I accidentally took a whole bunch of caffeine. I was doing some health supplements and both of them had caffeine in them, took them at the same time, and man, I got a whole bunch done that day. And looking back, I went, Why was that day so much easier for me? Well, the thing of it is that I wasn't drinking or having kind of any caffeine in my regular life for the previous 2 years. Not for any particular reason. I just uh, wasn't doing it anymore. It wasn't something I was considering. And it wasn't that the caffeine gave me a bunch of energy because I was had pretty much all the energy I needed, but it really helped me focus. So when I thought about that, some light bulbs started to kind of go off in my mind. But it wasn't until I joined a group for women entrepreneurs, but they had ADHD. And I started spending more time in this group. And the more time I spent, the more I thought, wow, this really fits me. This makes a lot of sense. Now, unlike maybe a lot of people, ADHD has been on my mind and my awareness for a really long time. The father of my kids, I knew he had ADHD. And so I kept an eye out on my 3 kids to see if they would end up having it as well, because I knew at the time it did have a genetic component with it. And sure enough, my younger son in kindergarten, it turned out we got him evaluated. His teacher mentioned some concerns, and we got him evaluated. And yeah, he had ADHD. So it was something I had been aware of for quite some time, but I never put the pieces together for myself. A lot of because there wasn't great awareness of the time of how ADHD showed up in women, and so it was something that really wasn't on a lot of people's radar. So once I had these two light bulb moments of spending time in this group and remembering how caffeine really helped me focus, I went to my doctor, talked about, what might I need to do, and I went and got formally evaluated. And sure enough, the results came back. Yep, I indeed do have ADHD. So, what this did for me was now with this new awareness, this really helped me understand that I was going to have to do things differently. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that basically means your brain is wired differently. And so it's not that you can't do this or that, it's that you just have to come at it from a different angle. So once I understood that, I started looking to what can I do to support myself in my work and journey to take my business online. And it just so happened that 10 years previously, I had come up with the perfect support system for myself. Um, it was a framework that helped me really control my behavior and change my habits. I learned all about habits, and maybe you've heard it more and more since I learned this 10 years ago. More people are talking about habits, but I basically came up with a system for myself in order to create and manage habits. And with that system, I was able to stop. Manage a habit that I had been doing my entire life. I was drinking pop, over a 2 liter of Coke every single day. And by using this system, I was able to quit and change that habit so that I was drinking water and healthy things instead. And I haven't had any pop in over 10 years now. I was also able to start a good habit, was able to create and maintain a really good exercise routine. And once I remembered it in the last couple of years, I applied it again, and I was able to establish a writing habit, which helped me write the rough draft of my book. So this is all well and good, and maybe you're thinking, "That's wonderful for you. I'm so happy, but I don't have ADHD. So what does this have to do with me?" Well, I'd like to introduce you to something called the cut curb effect. Almost, well, over 80 years ago now, they started to experiment with what it would take, what would happen if you changed the sidewalk curbs and made ramps in the spots where they would go across roads so pedestrians wouldn't have to step up when they got from the road back on the sidewalk. And ever since then, it's gotten more and more common that instead of having a curb to step up, you have a ramp. And initially, it was just thought of as a really good option for those who used wheelchairs or maybe a mobility aid like a cane, like somebody who needed help and couldn't make that step. But what they found out is that it helped so many more people than they were really anticipating. Just in general, it's easier to walk through the city when you don't have to step up and down on the sidewalk when you have that ramp. Maybe you're pushing a stroller. Now you don't have to bump the baby up and down the curb. Maybe you're pushing a heavy load or making a delivery to a home or a business that's on a sidewalk with a curb. Now you can easily roll a cart up to a business or a home because of the ramp, the cut curb instead of the solid curb. So even though you might not have ADHD, maybe you know for sure, maybe you suspect you do, you're not sure. Whatever the case may be, understanding on how to make a plan to create and manage habits can be beneficial for anybody. Those of us with ADHD or think we might have it, it's especially helpful because when you have ADHD, because of the different way that our brain is wired, we don't create good habits very easily. It's something that you need this system. You need a framework to support you so that you can. But with it, you can then create change. You can make a decision to make a change to hit a goal in your life. And you now have a framework, a system in order to support you through that process so you can have a consistent behavior and make progress with your actions towards that goal. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the system in question, and we'll go through a quick overview of it together so that by the end of it, you'll have an idea of how you could create or manage a habit for yourself. Okay, so we're going to start with something. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense, but let me explain. We're going to start with talking about the scientific method. And the reason I do this is because in order to create a change in your life, it's pretty possible that you have tried in the past and maybe failed at some point. And that can bring up a lot of guilt and shame and sort of negative feelings about trying to do something again. But if you use the scientific method as your basis, where it's basically you have established a question of what it is you want to do. You are going to test that question to see if that is indeed the way that will help you make that change. And then you play it out and you try it and see what happens. All that process is something that gives you a chance to get more experience and really have an opportunity to look at that experience in a neutral way. How did this work out? Did the thing that I thought was happen, did it actually happen? Did the way that I did this, did that work for me or did it not work for me? And as you go through the process, you get more and more data. So I encourage you to take the chance to become curious about the process. Allow yourself to practice. Understand that there will be trial and error as part of this, and that's okay. You don't have to be critical of yourself. You just be curious about, well, why did that happen? So that you can do better the next time. Quick drink. So now we're going to get right into the absolute foundation of the whole process. We're going to learn about the habit loop. This is the process that your brain is sort of paying attention to when you do any behavior. A habit is something that you do automatically. It's not something you have to decide to do. It's something that happens without you having to choose. And your brain has put this in play because your brain uses up a lot of the energy that you create every day. Up to 20% of your energy is used purely by your brain, which is something that doesn't have any kind of moving parts. There's no muscles. In comparison, the heart, which we all know is a muscle and is working constantly day and night, the heart muscle uses about 7 to 8% of our energy every day, and the brain uses more than twice as that. So, a habit is a process that has been put in place in order to save energy so that a lot of your behaviors, you don't have to make a decision, you don't have to think very hard about them. They just happen automatically so that you have a reserve when something unexpected comes up. So the way that your brain, the process that your brain's looking at in order to accomplish this is there is a trigger. There is something happens in your life, in your experience, and that causes you to respond. So you have some kind of behavior that you use to respond to that experience. And when you do that behavior, you get some kind of benefit out of it. Something works out. Something good comes through for that. Now, if you do this enough times in a row, part of your brain is going to go, oh, okay, this is something we can automate. This is something we can do where we don't have to make a decision. So it programs this in to happen automatically. So now every time you have that experience, you get that behavior and that benefit comes up. Benefit can be a little bit of a double-edged sword because it might not be a very comfortable benefit. To get you an example of in parenting, It's the end of the day, and you're trying to get everybody to come to the table for dinner. And the trigger is dinner time. The behavior is calling the kids from their room to come to dinner. And you call them nicely the first time, call them a little more sternly the second time. The third time, you're yelling 'cause you're very frustrated because you haven't been listened to. Now, while this doesn't maybe seem like a benefit, but usually by the time you're yelling when you're a parent, the kids are finally like, "Oh, now I know this person means business." And so then they start to do what you ask them to do. It doesn't feel like a benefit, but this is a habit that has been installed on their end and on your end that once we hear the yelling, then we comply with the behavior on the other request. And the habit that you've set up is you get to the third time and you lose your temper or you raise your voice, and now you get results, and the results are the benefit. So it can actually be a benefit sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't really feel like you're winning. It's like you've gotten a benefit out of it. So I'm going to talk now about the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is the part of us that is looking at and establishing this habits. And I like to call the unconscious mind the monarch. They are really ruling our lives. They are in charge of so much of what happens in our daily lives. They do create the habits. And the habits are doing 40 to 60% of your behavior. And even more, the percentage goes up when you think about your responses, your reactions, your thought processes. So the monarch is really doing a lot of heavy lifting in our lives. The unconscious mind is doing so much. They're in charge of our automatic biological functions, things like your respiration, your digestion, your circulation. Unconscious is handling all that. Your unconscious is where your identity lives, the way that you think about yourself. It's where your beliefs live, what you think about the world and your life in general. And it's also in control of your emotions. The way that the monarch communicates with the rest of us is through emotions. The monarch has also got one very, very top priority, and that is to keep you safe. That is what the monarch is doing at all costs. It wants you to be safe, top priority. Second priority, just under that, is to be comfortable, to just sort of feel cozy. So that's where the comfort zone comes in. Monarch builds you a comfort zone where it knows that you're safe and it knows that you're relatively comfortable. Now, comfort, again, sort of like benefit, can be a little bit of a misnomer. Really, it's that it's certain. It knows exactly what's going to happen. Maybe it's not the most comfortable thing that you're feeling, but it knows exactly how it will play out. Just like the example of yelling at your kids when you lose your temper by the third time. It's not comfortable, but it's certain. You know what's going to happen. By the time I raise my voice, the kids will finally listen to me and they'll come to dinner, and that's the result that I'm looking for. So your monarch is in charge of all these things. It's taking in so much more information than your conscious mind has any way of being able to uh, work through. If we were processing with our conscious mind the things that we're processing with our unconscious mind, we would be completely overwhelmed all the time. 100% of the time, we would just be in frozen mode because it would be overwhelming. So the monarch is taking care of those things. And because it's so much, it's in the background, it's running things from behind the scenes. Now, everybody's got their thing. Everybody's got something they struggle with and things that they're, that they do well. But some of the things that the monarch kind of struggles with is it wants it right now. It wants everything to stay certain and comfortable all the time. The monarch does not like discomfort at all. Uh, you can sort of think about someone who was raised as royalty, someone who was raised to always be obeyed and always to get exactly what they asked for immediately. Your monarch is not good with waiting and is not good with things being uncomfortable in the meantime. Your monarch is the holder of your identity and your beliefs, and those are set in stone as far as the monarch is concerned. It does not want those things to change. That is already established, it's already figured out, and it's now done. The good news is it can be changed, but the monarch just doesn't do it willingly. You have to learn how to work with the monarch in order to make those changes happen. The monarch might be a big part of the reason why you have struggled to make a change in the past. Because here's the other part, it wants you to stay in the comfort zone. It wants you to be safe and it wants you to be comfortable and certain. So if it just keeps you inside of the place that you've already established for yourself, then nothing has to be new. Nothing has to be unexpected. Nothing has to be a risk. It can keep you safe inside the comfort zone. All of these things are things that if you use your conscious mind, which we're going to talk about next, you can actually work with your monarch, this very, very powerful part of yourself, in order to get both parts of you to work together to make your change happen. But if you don't consider your monarch, very often you'll struggle to make a change because these things, the monarch is upholding your beliefs and your comfort zone in the background and does not want to be uncomfortable at all. So next, let's talk about the conscious mind. So I like to call the conscious mind the manager. The manager is like the trusted advisor, the right hand person to the monarch, somebody that is in charge of the day to day activities and is sort of left to handle everything else that the monarch can't while the monarch is busy dealing with all the overwhelming information coming in. So the manager is in charge of our logic and our rational thoughts. It's in charge of planning for our short and long-term goals. And the manager is the one that accesses our working memory. So that's the part of our memory that we can readily get in touch with. It's the memories of our experiences and the information that's within our conscious understanding. And the manager does a great job. I mean, they are running things. This is who we think of when we think of thinking, is the manager. And a lot of times we think they're the one in charge because that sort of makes sense, right? They're making all these plans and they're able to think things through rationally and logically, and they can think about all the things that we have conscious understanding of. Unfortunately, Monarch is still back there running the show based on beliefs and identity and comfort zone. So when the manager in that short or long term planning wants to make a change and you want to do things different, you really have to consider and accommodate your monarch when you go through that process. And yeah, there's things that the manager struggles with as well. Because the monarch's task is to sort of take in all that overwhelming information, the manager doesn't really have that skill set very much, and it's very easily overwhelmed. It's been shown that if you have more than three options to make a choice from, your manager is overwhelmed. Or if you have a lot of just information in general coming to the manager, just as like, whoa, this is too much. It's so much. I don't know how to organize this. I don't know how to get this figured out. And when that overwhelm happens, then the manager just sort of shuts down and says, I don't know what decision to make. So no decision is the decision. I won't be doing anything different or the same. Just nothing. Nothing will be happening, and we're going to be stuck right here until I can figure this out. Uh, and another big part of the problem with the manager is that so the monarch communicates with emotions, but the manager is in charge of our logic and our reasoning. So when the monarch tries to get your attention and communicate through an emotion, if you don't understand that that's a communication happening, your manager can more easily dismiss it and ignore that gut reaction or that uneasy feeling that you might be having. For example, you meet someone for the first time and you don't click with them. You just sort of have an uneasy feeling about them. You just maybe feel uncertain around them. That's an emotion talking to you, your monarch trying to get your attention of going, hey, look, we have seen maybe this sort of the same thing in other people before, same behaviors or mannerisms, and we are concerned that we maybe shouldn't trust this person right away, or we should get to know them a little better before really getting connected with them. And maybe your manager says, hey, look, this person is really educated, they're really well connected. It really makes a lot of sense logically to immediately get connected with them. I'm just going to ignore that uneasy feeling and move ahead anyway. Once you recognize that your emotions are just a communication and not something good or bad or to be squashed or overindulged in, you can really get that communication from your monarch, and your manager can kind of start to interpret, okay, when I feel this way, I understand it's trying to tell me something. Now pay closer attention and see what that might be. Okay. So many times when I mention habits, creating them and managing them, people will say to me, I would love to make a change. I would love to do something different, but I don't have the willpower. I just can't. I don't have the willpower. And in some ways, they're right. The thing is that willpower works maybe differently than you expect. It's not something you have or don't have. Willpower is like a muscle. And if you rely on only willpower to make a change, that muscle gets tired out. Basically, willpower is like our focused attention of working on a decision that we've already made. So let's say the change that you want to make is you want to get up earlier in the morning. Well, maybe that works really well on the first day and the second day, but by the third day, you're really tired and you're really exhausted, and the night that you go to sleep, you forget to set that alarm earlier, and you end up sleeping into the old time because you relied on this muscle to sort of push you through this process that really needs to be something that's supported and easy. It needs to be as comfortable and easy as possible so the monarch gets on board. The good news is that while you can tire your willpower out like a muscle, you can also build it up like a muscle. So you can strengthen it and you can gain willpower by exercising it and working on it in times that you're not relying on it to make a change. Bright spot focus is one of my favorite parts of this whole process because it really, just like a light bulb, boop, helped me see how change in a completely different way. So before I understood about bright spot focus, what I would do is I would look at the problem that I have. Let's say, for example, when I was a teenager in high school, and I would look at my report card, and maybe I got a couple A's, a couple B's, a C, and then a D. And I would just look at that D and just go, "Oh my goodness, this is such a problem." And just, "Oh, what did I do wrong? How could I let this happen?" And that's sort of the way we're wired. We have this negativity bias to sort of look and focus at the problem, just as people. But with bright spot focus, in order to actually handle the situation of having the D in a class, what would make more sense is if I looked at the two A's, the two classes I was getting A's in, and looked at why I was succeeding in those classes versus the time I was getting a C and then a D. What was it about those classes, aside from the subject matter? Was it the way that the teacher presented the information? Did they use visual things? Did they just lecture all the time? Did they use group projects? Did they give you independent study time? What was it about those classes that you got A's in that really worked for you? And once you understand what those instances are, you can take them and apply them to the things that you're struggling with. Well, by looking at those two A's, it turns out I'm really great with independent study and I need visual information when I'm learning it for the first time. So when you go to relearn that information or take another class like you did with the D in the same subject, you want to find a teacher who will give you a lot of visual, information when you're learning, will give you time and space to do independent study. The great thing about bright spot focus is it is something that you can absolutely modify for yourself. It just works for you. And that's all that's important because this is for your success. So you find the ways that work best for you, and then you apply them to any sort of change that you want to make. You know, you're great with independent study, so you don't join a gym group exercise class. You get a personal trainer and you do that time by yourself. Uh, or maybe you take a walk by yourself. But independent is the way that works best for you. Or maybe the other way, and you really are much better in a group. Then, if you want to start a writing practice, maybe you join a writer's group where you're going to be getting together and do co-work sessions right at the same time, and then have a chance to talk over your work and brainstorm together. Whatever works for you, make sure that's a part of your change plan. So I've been saying change plan, and the thing is that you have to create a plan to support yourself, a process and a system that's going to make it easy, that's going to take into consideration the strengths and the struggles of the monarch and the manager so that you can make this as easy as possible. The first thing you want to do is get clear. What is it that you're trying to accomplish and why? Just saying, "Oh, I want to get healthier." Well, what does that mean to you? Does that mean changing your eating behavior? Does that mean changing your motion? Does that mean changing your mental or emotional well being? What is it that is really going to help you the most? What is the specific change you want to make? And also why? And the reason why you want to have your why is because your monarch communicates through emotion. And just like it's a two-way street of communication. If you can hype up and start to feel and experience that emotion when you think about why it is that you want to make this change, you can communicate to your monarch why this is important, why we should try to do things and maybe get a little uncomfortable and a little uncertain. The last thing with the clarity process is this a giant, big, long-term goal that you want to break up into stages and then steps? Or is it a shorter term goal where you can just break it up into steps? So make your steps as easy as possible, something that you know you can accomplish, something that is not going to make your monarch kind of throw a fit and go, "No, no, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this." Maybe a little uncomfortable, but you get that why, you get that emotion going about how this is going to be so great for you. And you're like, "Okay, it's uncomfortable to move an extra 10 minutes today, but I'm excited about how I'm going to feel better and better throughout this process. So you get your monarch to start working with you instead of against you. Then you grab those bright spot focus insights and you apply them so that when you create your plan, you're creating this for you, not how anybody else would do it. Make sure it's going to work for you. How were you successful? What were the different instances, the environment? Who else was involved? Did you need a teacher, a coach, independent study? What worked for you? And then apply that to your plan. And then we go step by step with even more clarity. What action are you going to take to make progress towards this goal? What are you going to change and do differently specifically? Again, not just, "Oh, I want to feel better, but I want to walk every single weekday before I go to work for 30 minutes. Get super duper specific. Your manager is all over that so that you know exactly the type of thing that you need to support and how to work through your plan. Then also you think about what's going to happen when things don't go well. And that does happen, right? You wake up late, you wake up feeling sick, or you have a vacation to go on. Something is different in your experience. Let's just go ahead and plan for that ahead of time. Understand there will be challenges, there'll be obstacles, and that's okay. Decide ahead of time how you want to work through them. And this is the time and place, especially to give yourself grace. Just like when we talk about the scientific method of not getting critical, but being curious, but also apply grace to this whole process. Don't beat yourself up. There's no drama needed, just data. Even the things that don't work out give you understanding of how to do things different the next time. And if you prepare ahead of time and say, oh, if I wake up late, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes after work. It's not about punishing yourself. It might be, if I wake up late, I'm going to walk on Saturday instead, or I'm just going to stay within my weekdays. I'm going to chalk this up as a grace. And, it just happens sometimes. It's just life. And then you also need to prep. What can you do to support yourself to make the whole process as easy as possible? What can you prepare ahead of time? Make sure that you have easily available to you so that you can accomplish this goal. And once you go through, like with the scientific process, you have to look at the end of it and kind of evaluate, how did things go? You review what went well. Let's do more of that. What didn't go well? Okay, we're not going to dwell, but it is data. What can we do to modify things? So we think, hopefully, we'll put it in practice, see if this changes that thing that worked out not how we were hoping it would be. And this is the last thing that's really, really important. You have to celebrate every step of the way. Not when you reach the goal, not when you get to the end and you're like, oh, I did it, yay, change. You have to celebrate every step of the way. Celebrate every day you accomplish the thing you set out to. Celebrate even more when you review at the end and go, what worked this week? What really worked well? You're communicating with your monarch. You're getting your monarch and your manager to work together, communicate through emotion, and be excited and enjoy and comfort being established with doing this new thing. And with all those things put together, you can start to make a change. You can start doing the things that are important to you in your life. So you can create a new behavior that you haven't done in the past. You can modify one that's maybe not as healthy as you would like it to be. Thank you for spending time with me. If you have any questions about this at all, please get in touch with me through my email, monarchdawnjen@gmail.com. And as a freebie, you're going to be getting the breakdown of what it takes to create a habit. And you're also going to be getting some extra ADHD resources that if you think you might have ADHD or you know you have ADHD, it can be even more places for you to get that support that you need since we're wired a little different. Thanks again. I appreciate everyone spending time with me today. Thank you so much.
Did you take notes? I should have told you at the beginning that this was one that you wanted to take notes for. Comment below. What are you going to implement to be able to accomplish your goals? And if you know someone with ADHD, a woman with that could use this video, share it with her. Share the resource. Let's share the love and empower and elevate everyone we know to get her free gift of all of the resources that she talked about in the video. There is a link below. Simply click it, schedule a call with me, and you not only get hers, you get all of the guest free gifts that are there available for you. So I will see you in the next session and have an amazing rest of your day. Bye for